In this, the second episode of Brad Lackey, The Big Interview, Brad talks about 10 years in Europe, the people he really had to look out for, and trying to stick to the big plan.
You know, I spent 10 years chasing that world championship, so obviously that day was great. The one I'd want on the wall is the yellow one behind me, so I got it. And again, 81 was a development year for Suzuki. They had bikes from 76, 75, and they thought they were still going to work. You know, I said, oh, no, a lot has changed since that time. Yeah, that was my own fault. You know, I switched to Kawasaki. If I would have stayed on Honda in 79, I would have won the championship.
What was the best bike that ever came from the factory, just like right out of the crate for you? Was there ever a bike that went, whoa, this one's working?
Yeah, I mean, the 78 Honda was pretty flawless. And, you know, and you could tell by 78 and 79 production bikes, they were the best going. I mean, you could take a stock production bike and put a pair of shocks on it and win a Grand Prix, you know. So they were really good at that time. And my 80 Kawasaki was just about the same, but a little more radically newer version, you know. And it was also very, very good straight from the factory. We didn't have to do much. But that's after a whole year of 79 of breaking frames and blowing up motors, and you know, they finally got it and built something really good with all the knowledge they had from the previous year. And Honda too, you know, they took them, you know, from 76 with Pierre on that big bike Honda to 78 to get it right, you know. So, you know, 2-3 years of development. Yeah. You know, they got to be serious. If they're really serious and they spend the money and they do all the work, then the bikes will be pretty good.
Yeah, and talking to Dave Arnold right after that period, because Dave was over there at that time, but kind of right after that, Honda got really serious and kind of went crazy with the budget, and it was like the sky's the limit, we'll do anything crazy. You just missed that on the Honda side of things.
Yeah.
That must have been in some ways frustrating after having kind of worked through all the hard parts to
yeah, that was my own fault. You know, I switched to Kawasaki. If I would have stayed on Honda in 79, I would have won the championship. But I was kind of let down a little bit that they told me that the Unitrack was a lot more far advanced in the testing and stuff. You know, I kind of got fed a couple lines there. And Honda, like I said, I didn't get along perfectly because of I couldn't change things, and they wanted it just completely left alone, and I couldn't even make hardly any adjustments to it. So I wanted a change where I could more adapt the bike to my style, and Cowie would let me do that. Unfortunately, the bike wasn't ready, and you know, it broke down. I broke down, you know, half their GPs. I won the most GPs, but I got the worst in the championship that I had ever. You know, the first time I went kind of backwards. And yeah, Honda came in then and started dropping tons of money and just building anything everybody wanted, and it was really good bikes. And then they had a stranglehold on the 500 GPs for years there until Suzuki decided they wanted to get back in it. You know, Suzuki was out since Roger in 75 or so, and they hadn't even had a 500 biker team. So in 81, when they wanted to get on board with me and go and chase Honda, I said, oh yeah, that sounds like a good plan. And again, 81 was a development year for Suzuki. They had bikes from 76, 75, and they thought they were still going to work. You know, I said, oh, no, a lot has changed since that time. So, you know, again, button heads about all that stuff. And then by 82, you know, the bike was good enough that with all the changes I made, we won the world championship. So, and they got second also, and they won the manufacturers, and they took it away from Honda that had a stranglehold on it for 5-6 years, and they just went, we come back 1 year and can kick your butt. You know, I think it's just about those two head guys playing golf and one guy going, ha ha ha, you know.
Yeah, Roger said, I asked him if you could have any bike from any time that you raced up on the wall in your living room, which would it be? And he said, well, it's already there. It's a 76 Suzuki. Is there one bike in your mind that if you could have any of them that you ever rode, you'd have on the wall?
Yeah, I got a few of them. But, you know, I'm always wishing I have the one I don't have, you know, and that isn't really the answer to that question. That's just to fill in some blanks in my collection. But let's see. That's a good question. The one I'd want on the wall is the yellow one behind me. So I got it.
You got it. What made that? I mean, what made it special?
See, for Roger, it's different. He's got 5 world championships and got all kinds of bikes, and he liked that one because it was probably way ahead of all the other bikes at the time and easy to ride or something. And he maybe won every GP on it or something like that. Well, me, I only have 1 championship, only 1 bike, so it narrows down my deal.
And was it because it was the championship bike, or was the bike just that good too?
Oh, it's because it's the championship bike. It's the only bike that won the first championship for America. It's the only Suzuki I know that's still not cut up in pieces from that era, and it's got a lot of firsts to it. So that's why I like that one.
And it has, Simon's forks, which were way ahead of their time.
Right.
That's today's fork back then.
Yeah, I mean, after Simon's invented those, and I helped in the development, and we went to the GPs, and we had them on there from testing in California all before the GPs, maybe almost a year, and we knew they were good and there was going to be no problems. And of course, Suzuki didn't like that because they didn't make them, and we won a few GPs, enough to win the championship, and never had a problem with the forks ever one time. And actually, when this bike left the day after the day of the championship, when I won, they put it in the Suzuki truck and it went back to Suzuki Belgium, and Sylvain Gabors ran that, and his brother came in and took the forks off of it, and Sylvain, I guess, gave them to him, so he had the forks. And when I finally tracked the bike down, it had just factory Suzuki forks on it. And then I got an email from Sylvain's brother, "Hey, would you like your forks from your bike?" And I go, "Well, yeah." "Why do you think they're my forks?" "Because I took them off the day after the race, and they've been hanging in my basement ever since." I went, "Okay, there's a little number down in the bottom down there. Tell me what that number is." And then I called Steve Simons, and he had notes, meticulous notes. I said, "What fork number was on the forks at Luxembourg on that day?" He gave it to me, and to match that one, I went, "Okay, that's them." So we got those and put them on, and that was it. The bike was back to kind of the way it was.
Why do you think it took so long for that fork to become the standard? I mean, for many years afterwards,
Well, I don't know, because I'm not in that technical development end of it like that, but Suzuki, Yamaha, Honda, and Kawasaki all saw the potential and saw that, we won the championship with them and there was no problems. And then they copied them, is what they basically did. And then they put them on their production bikes for 10 years until Simons won a lawsuit against them for that. And I don't know, it's something like $40 or $60 million. And they had to pay for every production bike that they put them on, basically. And so he won that, and that's the way it should have been. And of course, now everybody has great forks.
Yeah, exactly. When you were doing that, developing the front forks, you were still dealing with, what was then kind of standard rear suspension and all the relatively old technology and the shocks and everything. Was there a problem trying to get the rear end to work as well as the front end back then?
Yeah, like I said, we had some problems. I actually nearly lost the championship because of a shock problem. We had a good lead going into the last 3 or 4 races of the season, and then I won the first. This was Carlsbad was 1 week, and the next week is Canada, and then I went back to Europe for England, Belgium, Holland, Luxembourg, or something. So anyway, I won the first moto in Canada, and I had the second moto won with a couple laps ago, and my shock shaft broke in half, and so the bike didn't finish. That was the one DNF out of 24 motos, so 23 finishes, 1 broke down. And by doing that, then Vromans, the guy that was racing me for the championship, he won the second moto and got second in the other one. So I went from a 30-point lead to a 10-point lead. So then we're going home to his home countries. So the following week we tied on points in England. I won the Grand Prix, but we didn't gain any points on each other. And then we went to Belgium. He got a few points, and then it was down to Luxembourg, where whoever beat who was basically going to win. And then that broken shock just cost me so much, because I would have had such a cushion that they wouldn't even be nervous, going into any of those races. But so there was still problems in '82 with shocks. Yeah.
Yeah. So, looking back over your career, who was your fiercest competitor? Who was the guy you had to really fight against the most during your racing career?
I think Malherbe and I had probably the biggest battles. He was big. I mean, the guys that rode 500 in Europe, Carlquist, Malherbe, Noyce, they're all over 6 foot and 200-pound guys riding 500cc bikes. I was a lightweight at 165, and so those guys were big, strong guys. So, and it gets physical. And Malherbe was really aggressive, and so he was the hardest guy. We did a lot of bumping and back and forth stuff. Romans, he was more my size, and he was a real, let's say, a gentleman on the track like me. I don't take anybody out and try to knock anybody down or anything. And Malherbe's a little bit more aggressive, and that's, he cost me the world championship by center punching me in the first turn in 1980, and wrecked my hopes right there. So, it's a little. We weren't buddies, let's put it that way. But karma's bad.
Were there others? I mean, like Mikkola, who was the strong guy? Who was the guy that
Mikkola was strong and tough and bad, but he was, he rode right. There's certain guys that no matter how good they are, they're not going to be bad, dangerous racers or bad racers on the track and try to take you out and stuff. Where Heike, he was just good enough and fit enough that he didn't have to do any of that either. So him and I had a lot of good battles in 78, 77, 78, and 79. By then I could beat him, but my bike was junk, so that didn't help me. But 78, him and I was on the Honda and he's on the Yamaha. We had a lot of good duels. I'd win a moto, he'd win a moto, back and forth.
What did you learn from, because obviously, as you said, way back in the day when those guys came over, they were so fast. It was European fast against American fast. What was it that you learned that kind of put you over the top when you went to Europe? What did you learn from the Europeans that you hadn't learned here in California?
Well, I started going to training camps when I was with Husky, so we went to training camps, like what Heike did and all the European guys did. They didn't have that over here yet, and get up at 5 in the morning in the dark and go to the gym for 3 hours and put on cross-country skis and go 10 kilometers in the snow, and then put spikes on your tires and go out and do motos in the ice and snow, and then go back to the gym, and then it's dark again, and you go eat some dinner and go to sleep for 2 weeks at a time, And, being in shape was really the key, because the races were, basically 40 minutes plus 2 laps, and the lap over there is over 2.5 minutes usually. So you're over 45 minutes on the bike each moto. So you got to be in condition, and that's the thing I learned the most about. And I got where I was in top condition, and I didn't get tired like the other guys. I mean, we had charts that we had lap times of every rider, every lap of every Grand Prix, actually in '82, and it could tell you right there, okay, this rider at this point after 22 minutes or 25 minutes or 30 minutes, he's going 2 seconds slower a lap, And when you have that information and you don't get tired, you can ride around in the back, get a bad start, don't take any chances at the start, and you can calculate it out, If I go the same speed, I'm going to win the race, It's pretty mathematical, but true, and I was in good enough shape that we could do that, and that's the biggest thing I learned, I think,
Was there a difference in riding style? I mean, just the way you rode the bike over there?
No, I mean, I was always, from the time that I was riding that BSA Matisse, I was young, I was riding a big bike from early age, so I was an open class rider. I wasn't a 125 guy or a mini bike guy like nowadays, and then a 125, then a 250, and then, I started on big bikes. When I won the championship in Kawasaki, it was a 490. That was the biggest thing going by over 100 cc's bigger than any production bike. And so I was just an open class rider. So I was used to big, heavy, powerful motors, and therefore you have to be in better shape because it hurts you more and it's harder to ride. So conditioning in the 500 class is the key to everything, you know.
Yeah, I've heard from a few people when you ask, well, why are we not dominant in Europe anymore at, you know, motocross nations and that kind of thing? And one of the answers I've had more than once is, well, because we ride so much supercross, it's a different riding style, more aggressive, more clutch, dive into going and stop, turn, accelerate, and all that kind of crap. Was there a difference in that way in any riding style between what you were doing here and what you ended up doing in Europe? Did you change the way you rode the motorcycle?
No, not really. I mean, I rode motocross over here, you know, outdoor tracks just like there. You know, I rode the first Supercross 2 or 3. I think I rode them up to 75. But, you know, I didn't have good equipment for that type of, you know, stuff. They weren't changing the bikes at that time for Supercross, you know. I'm riding a Husky that's made for going across the desert that doesn't turn anywhere, let alone in a Supercross. And, you know, you can't do that. You know, you got to get Jimmy Ellis on a Can-Am that you flip the thing down and make it short, and then you can do that stuff. And, you know, that was, you know, again, the development stages, you know, from Supercross. They learned all that stuff over the years. You know, it's been around a long time now. But outdoor racing, it's the same. You know, a 500 on a track in Europe or here is basically you ride it the same way. You know, your track's probably nicer, rougher, better terrain in Europe, longer, you know, but same system.
Yeah. My brain just stopped working. So you were talking about Malab being more aggressive. What was there a lot of head game stuff going on in those days? I mean, was it is it or was it a psychological thing as much as anything back then?
You know, they play little games, but you know, you don't travel with them. You know, like nowadays, all the guys are on the same plane going to the race. You know, so they see each other there, see each other getting a rental car and all that. You know, we travel separately. In the motorhome, he would fly, drive a Mercedes, and you know you don't see each other until you got your helmet on. So, you know, there wasn't really much time for that stuff. You know.
Yeah, I've heard tales of Wynot walking down the start line behind people in a heat race and going, "Ooh, you're riding with one of those Dunlop tires?
Yeah.
They didn't give you the new one." Yeah.
Jammer, he's the master of that. Yeah, he invented that over here. So you know he did that a lot. He used that to his advantage quite a bit. Yeah. But you know, a lot of that was his style and it worked for him. But you know, not everybody can do that. Yeah.
How do you think your competitors viewed you? You viewed Andre Malab as being aggressive. How do you think all the other guys looked at you back in the day? What would you like to think they thought of you as a rider?
I don't know. I think, you know, really, if I had, like I said, I didn't need a start to win the race. And a lot of guys did, you know. They had to be up front in order to have a chance to win the race. And I hope that and think that, okay, everybody would think, okay, it doesn't matter what start he gets. He's still a threat to win the race. So, you know, he's going to come from the back. Some people can't pass. Some people can't do that, you know. But I was good at coming from the back and not taking chances at the start. That's why I'm all here today and everything works. I didn't have a lot of big start crashes, and those are the ones that can really hurt you, you know. So I only had one, and that was bad enough.
Do you know where and who started the bad Brad Lackey thing?
Nah, it was press, and you know I was probably gone in Europe when it first came out somewhere. I don't really know who started it. You know, it's just, you know, they try to put letters that match. You know.
Yeah.
So what could I be? Beautiful Brad? I don't think so.
Well, you never know. Is there one thing that, looking back over your career, one thing you wish you'd maybe done differently, changed, that would have, you know, made a difference to the whole story?
I wish in '80 I didn't try to get as good a start as I did at the Luxembourg Grand Prix. I wish in '70 '89, I would have stayed with Honda, and then I would have 3 world championships. But other than that, no.
So what was the Luxembourg? What happened?
I got into the corner nearly first with Mallard and me for the championship that year, and then he just, instead of turning, he went straight and center punched me and crashed me, and I was dead last, laying in the fence, and I got back up, and I did what I could do, and I got to fourth, from dead last, and he won the race, and then the second race, if I won, and he got anything but second, I would win the championship, and so I'm winning the second race, and he's in second place, so. Because of that crash, if I would have not tried to get into the first turn so nice and just hung back and did my strategy, I could have caught up and passed him and probably won that way. But I was going for the whole shot to make it easier, and it probably cost me that crash.
Yeah. So what was obviously winning the world championship was a major thing, but is there any other moment that you look back on as like the high point or something that was really special to you?
I spent 10 years chasing that world championship, so obviously that day was great. And, we did all the homework, we did all the good work, we did everything right, which was hard to do. And, when you go to a track and there's 60,000 people that don't want you to win and want the other guy to win, there's a lot of danger involved, so things can happen really easy to get out of control, and it could make that day not happen in your favor. So I think that was, having the right team and doing everything right was a big deal that day. And I think that's the thing that'll stick with me the most, that we pulled it off, we made a plan, we stuck to it, and it worked, was the main thing. And, other races, a lot of races, a lot of motos, a lot of days in the dirt, and there's no big races that stand out. I won Hopetown on that BSA one year. That was fun, and just having fun on the bike, learning a lot, meeting a lot of great people. They're still friends today, and Lori and I will be together 50 years in a couple months, and she was there the whole time and helping me, and without her that would have been impossible.
Yeah, a lot of guys go to Europe and go, I couldn't stand the food, couldn't stand the travel, couldn't stand whatever. A lot of time it's just excuses for not necessarily doing as well as they could have done, but obviously having Laurie there with you must have helped make life a little bit easier on the road.
Oh yeah, we had a motorhome, and we could eat what we wanted, travel when we wanted, not chasing hotels with kids and all that stuff. So it made, we made a plan. We figured out the easiest way to do it, and then that would give us best results. And you compromise here and there, but if you make a good plan, it'll work out. And I had the desire to go win Grand Prix, so I was going to do it, pretty much no matter how hard it was. And somebody else that gets pushed into, okay, now you have to go to Europe, ride Grand Prix. Yeah, you got no desire to do that, and I can see how you're not going to do well. But that was my main goal from the time I was 16. I told my sponsor, my CZ sponsor, I'm going to go win the World Championship for you. So.
Yeah, just a few years late for CZ, but yeah.
Yeah, didn't think I could do it on the CZ.
Please check out my 480-page coffee table book, Motocross, The Golden Era.